Dr. Deepak Chopra. So I am, and here he is. So I don't need to introduce Dr. Deepak Chopra, but I'm sure you all know, and if you don't know, he is a pioneer in the space of the mind-body connection and the exploration of consciousness. So here we are, Deepak. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
How are you?
Great to see you. Great to see you, Gabriela.
So good to see you. Thank you for joining. It's very exciting.
Can you see me clearly?
I can see you clearly. I can see the lighting. I can see the different imagery on your wall.
Okay, good. Okay. How's everything? Well, thank you for having me on this.
Thank you. Well, thank you to Kenneth for supporting us, Never Alone, the Chopra Foundation, giving us a platform to share. So I want to dive deep into the subject almost immediately. But maybe just before we start this, just for our viewers, because we have so many, maybe we can just settle into the mental space. And maybe you could guide us just to settle into the mental space for 1 minute as we start this conversation.
So everyone who's watching us, just stop whatever you're doing. Close your eyes and watch your breath. Settle into your body. And in this moment, if you can recall an experience that you could call love, an experience. Maybe you fell in love for the first time, or you saw your newborn child for the first time, or you just were thinking of your beloved. Think of that. Feel your body. Feel the sensations in your body. Relax into your body and feel the presence of the experience we call love. And remember this experience. Anytime you feel slightly depressed, recall the experience. Okay? Our mind is never at peace. In fact, just the word peace of mind is an oxymoron. There's no such thing as peace of mind. The mind is never at peace, bouncing from pleasure to pain, back and forth, back and forth. So if you want true mental hygiene, focus on love, compassion, empathy, love, kindness, joy, equanimity. Help others do the same. And get this baggage out of your body, which is trauma. Past trauma is the reason for all mental distress. I don't even want to call it mental illness anymore. Mental distress. Less mental distress and sadness has a huge spectrum, from minor existential issues to major suicidal depression. We don't need diagnoses. We need to address mental distress.
That's very true. Thank you. So having grounded the mental space, I like using that word mental space, because mental health, yes, certainly. That's a common word and it's a common phenomenon that we're addressing in the topic. But I think the mental space is where each and every one of us can connect, because we all have a mental space. Regardless of its nature, we have mental space. And sometimes that mental space has turbulence, has tsunamis. Sometimes it's very dry. It can be any landscape. And when you look at a landscape, when you just look at a landscape and you're having that witnessing awareness of a landscape, there's always beauty to be found there. When you look at the ocean, when you look at the mountains, when you look at the New York skyline, when you look at the favelas, when there's beauty when you look at the landscape. So I'm inviting the viewers to just look at the landscape of the mental health that you inhabit, that you act in, that you operate in, that you live in. And sometimes you can sit back and you can be the witnessing awareness of the beautiful spectrum and the rainbows and all of the colors that you are. So I think we can go into what is, you shared that mental health is mental distress. You beautifully shared that love is actually the way to finding mental peace. At our foundation, at the Never Alone Initiative, we have Love in Action. Love in Action is a 4-step process to help us just trigger that love in action for ourselves and the world. Do you want to share about it, Deepak?
Yeah, the origin of the whole phrase love in action is what in Eastern spiritual traditions is called karma yoga. So karma yoga means you act from that space of being as loving awareness, not worrying about the outcome. But you do act, because without acting on the emotion of love, then it remains an abstract idea. So love without action is really irrelevant, and action without love is also irrelevant in a sense. It doesn't mean anything, it's meaningless. But when you have love in action, then the whole world supports you. And we do mention our four acts of love in action, which are mental acts actually, before you actually do something physical or on the world of what we call physical interaction. And these we say are the 4 A's: attention, deep listening to each other without judgment; appreciation, being grateful that we are in each other's lives. That's what appreciation is, gratitude for the other. Attention, affection, caring for each other, holding each other's back. And if we practice these 4 A's, attention, appreciation, affection, and acceptance means not trying to each other, knowing that each of us is both. You know, we have the sacred and the profane, all of us, divine and diabolical. We have light and shadow. When we accept all that, then we are sowing the seeds for healing. And then we do take action also, whether it's offering each other financial help or advice or counseling or facilitating an ecosystem where we can democratize well-being. So that's what we're trying to do right now. And you're very much a part of that. And we are very grateful that we have this platform with Kenneth to even talk about it and explore it even more, because we need to reach that critical mass where no one is excluded.
Yes, and nobody feels alone.
Yes.
You know, it's important because, you know, mental health is, as you know, Deepak, very personal for me. Not only for my inner journey of expanding my awareness into who we are as human beings, overcoming personal trauma, but mental health is a family trauma. And I think I'm using the word correctly when I say trauma, because trauma, we were discussing earlier, is intergenerational. And sometimes we carry trauma that we actually don't even realize. And then all of a sudden, because of circumstances, because of the environment, because of a particular point of time, they're triggered. And the trauma is reignited, and then it lives through you unbeknownst to really who you are. And that's what's fascinating. And that's actually what happened to my little sister. For those who know the Never Alone initiative, it's born out of the loss of my little sister. And she was an incredible artist. I'm still using the present tense. She is an incredible artist. Her music is still to be heard. Her lyrics are still to be explored. But what's fascinating is that she took her own life at age 28. And that evening, she was alone. And what happened was, there are many things that we don't know. The why is not the answer to the pain, but the journey of trying to understand the why has led me to you, Deepak, and to really understanding. I wasn't aware before my sister died that every 40 seconds prior this pandemic, someone died by suicide. And that means that there is a crisis here, that thanks to the pandemic, it has been highlighted, but it's still there, and it was always there. And so now, yes, there are new platforms popping up, like the Mental Health Coalition, who are really taking on the forefront of destigmatization, but there's a lot of work to do. And so how do you, Deepak, what is your vision for the future of the world regarding mental health? Is there a future? Will we ever find and liberate our mental space? Or will we ever liberate from suffering?
We have to work towards that end. Whether what the outcome is, Karma Yoga says you leave that to the divine, you leave that to the unknown. But from our side, we never stop. And that's why those forays are important. From our side, we never stop. But right now, also, there is this whole discussion on what it takes to emerge into a new story. So, the old story is one of competition, the old story is one of predation, the old story is one of control, the old story is one of exclusivity, and all that. There are many, just look at the mental health space. So many people,
Yes.
And they are all doing their own thing. But right now, if we understand what social scientists are calling emergence, how do you get rid of the old story and break into a new story? And what is a story to begin with anyway? A story is the result of context, meaning, and relationships. Just remember those three words: context, meaning, and relationships. So the old story was a story of conquest, predation, in a sense, a dysfunctional masculine energy. And the new story is actually not that. The new story says the old story has to die completely, and the new story has to be born, which means new context, new meaning, new relationships. So that requires what we call emergence. And emergence happens when there's shared vision. For right now, we are sharing our vision with Kenneth Cole and his organization, but we need many more. So shared vision, complementing each other's strengths, because all of us have different resources and access to different resources. Shared vision, complementing strengths, even with those that you might have in the past perceived as competitors, they're not. They're your partners. So complementing each other's strengths, shared vision, emotional and spiritual bonding within ourselves, and then transparency about best practices, what is working, what is not working. I think if we did that, we would see the death of the old story and the birth of a new story. Because right now we desperately need a new story of social justice, economic justice, racial justice, gender justice, but even more. A story that says we are, as I love to quote the Buddhist, I know you're a Buddhist, and you have a great fondness for Buddhist theology, but Thich Nhat Hanh's favorite phrase, we are interbeings in the inter-isness. And as long as we focus ourselves as part of the inter-isness, we are part of the matrix, because the matrix of human expression is sentient beings in the inter-isness, except they have to stop competing on whose story is valid and whose story we need to cancel. Everybody's story is valid because everybody's story is part of the matrix of interbeingness. You have your story, which resulted in epigenetic intergenerational trauma. But there are stories like that in the war, in Holland, in all over the world. And they're causing a continuum of the recycling of the old stories. So how do we create new contexts, new meanings, new stories that overshadow the death of the old story? It's a death and a resurrection. That's what I would say. And that's why we're here talking to the world, thanks to the Mental Health Coalition as well. This is a very good word, coalition.
It is. We're looking at we're looking at an alliance as well at what we do with Never Alone. It's like we just came out of the Never Alone Summit, and so we had scientists, mental health experts, and so many artists and who are just sharing the story, but also really practical solutions. So I think, yes, emergence is one of the practical solutions that we need. We do need emergence. And I think you're right. I think we do also need non-judgment. how do we get out of this competitiveness? Because in a way, the world has, it's all about what does the other have more than the other, or what have we accomplished more than the other, or what, or how, and that for some reason has been the poison of our minds, of our mental landscape. All of a sudden, our mental landscape, the mental space that we addressed in the beginning of the conversation, feels not adequate. It doesn't feel brilliant enough. There's not enough light. There's not enough moisture. There's never enough in our own mental space because of the landscape of how we've depicted who we are to the world. So do you have any remedies for just, reestablishing the connection with our own mental space, our self-esteem, something like that? That is the bridge towards a better mental hygiene.
So if people who are watching us and listening to us, just close your eyes right now and think of an experience that was traumatic. Just think of an experience. Remember a traumatic experience. Somebody was mean to you, hurt you physically, emotionally, abused you. Think of that and feel your body. And you'll immediately see that your body doesn't feel good. The sensations are uncomfortable. Okay, so your body is the projection of that story right now. Now close your eyes again and think of an experience when you fell in love, or whatever happened that was so remarkable that immediately you felt joy. And now feel your body. It feels different. So in Eastern wisdom traditions, the body is the reflection of the story in your head. And the story is an interpretation of a past experience. And that's why the body is frequently called the karmic body of the story. Your body is a projection of karma. Now, the only way to get over that is to transcend all stories, okay? Is to transcend. But in the meanwhile, replace traumatic stories with love stories. And go all the way. Mythical love, the love between Radha and Krishna, the love between Romeo and Juliet, the love between Laila and Majnu, the love between Shiva and Shakti. And suddenly it takes you to a whole new level of archetypal stories that bring joy to the body. But in the end, when you close your eyes and have no story, you won't even feel your body, okay? Because the body is reflecting the story. So if you close your eyes and say, been there, done that, I'm in presence of being right now, your body will have no trauma at that moment. So every time you transcend stories, your body heals a little bit. And every time you meditate, it does the same thing. You were sharing with me at some point that you sing and you chant, and you do mantras. So right now there's a lot of very interesting idea about something that is called the Polybagel Theory. So, polyvagal, the vagus nerve in our body is the healing nerve. It's the opposite of the sympathetic nerve, which causes fight, flight, distress, reactive responses, fear, alienation, separation. Whenever we feel that, there's a part of our autonomic nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system that goes into overdrive, that causes inflammation in the body. Okay, so we know that. Okay, the vagus nerve does the opposite. It's referred to as the rest, rejuvenate, renew nerve. And it's the 10th cranial nerve that moves from your brain, midbrain, but it interacts with the nerves that move your eyes. It's called the oculomotor nerve, facial nerve, so it influences facial expressions, tone of voice. Okay, and then it goes through the diaphragm. It goes through every organ in the body, including the microbiome, which houses all our genes. So recently, some scientists in the US, from Indiana University and other universities, but came up with the Polybagel Theory, which says if you do these 4 practices, you will stimulate the vagus nerve and override depression, anxiety. And there are only 4 things you need to do to start doing this. The first is breathing in a way that takes away your anxiety. And there are many techniques, breathing pranayama, that will take away your anxiety. So the first is breath. The second is vocalization, which means singing, chanting, mantra, or singing your favorite songs, like your your songs, but also things like Gregorian chanting, Tibetan chanting. You know, the word enchantment means to become one with the divine through chanting. Enchantment. So enchantment. So first is breath, second is vocalization, singing, dancing, chanting. The third is posture. Posture is very interesting. When people say, oh, what does posture mean? Do I have to stand upright? No, no. It simply means that every part of your body reflects a state of awareness. So when we do, say, yoga, I do warrior pose, it's supposed to evoke that mood. If I do happy child, then I'm evoking that mood. If I'm doing, what do you call it, the child pose or happy baby pose, it evokes that mood. Dog, cat, cow, it evokes that mood, etc., etc. And so these postures of mind-body practices, whether it's yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong, they all stimulate the vagus nerve. And the final thing is emotions and relationships, the 4 A's. So if we combine these, let's combine them. Breathing practices, singing and chanting, mantras, and then body movements that bring coordination, and healthy emotions like empathy, compassion, joy, equanimity, and love in kindness, then we are stimulating every branch of the vagus nerve, which interacts even with the microbiome in our body. The microbiome is 2 million genes, and now we know that this part of our body produces 80% of the serotonin in our bodies, not from the brain, but from our gut. So take care of your gut, a healthy diet, a diet that has maximum diversity of plant-based foods, which are organic, and then start singing and chanting, and breathing, and then connecting with each other and moving in a graceful manner. And we have the formula for mental hygiene. That's the formula for mental hygiene.
It is. It's so important. I think. Thank you, Deepak, for sharing that, because there are so many solutions, and I think it's about the story. The new we need to create a new story for mental health. I like saying it's a new culture. You know, we have all these gyms, we have all these meditation spots and yoga places. What if there was, a mental hygiene spot, mental fitness spot? So, now we have to build this new culture together. And I think that's why we're here today. That's Mental Health Coalition is a leader in that space, helping culture through fashion, art, all of that. So, and Kenneth is a leader in that. So now let's all just start practicing. And I think each and every one of us is the actor of the dream. And that dream is a new mental health culture where we can experience each other's stories, we can experience each other's traumas, and yet we can help each other liberate from them, even if we are the cause of some pain. It's also the part of being able to forgive oneself, being able to forgive others, and to forgive the unknown. The unknown is impermanence, and impermanence strikes at any time. We didn't know that this virus would be around, but it's here. And so now we're having to reassess our environment and how we relate to reality. And I think the questions are often the solutions. Do you have anything to add?
All I have to say is, now with all this knowledge that we have, if we collectively cohere in this space of well-being, collectively create an ecosystem, and now we have that ecosystem. We've begun our journey. Let's breathe together. Let's dance together. Let's sing together. Let's chant together. Let's move together. And let's support each other with those emotions. And we have a program. And we should all do it together. We should all do it together. And I want to thank the Mental Health Coalition and Ken Cole in particular for leading this effort. And it's a privilege for all of us to be part of it.
It is a privilege.
And it's a privilege for me that, Gabriella, you are leading Love in Action and Freedom from Suffering, and then you are being the face of it, and you're not afraid to tell your own story and what happened with your sister. And that goes a long way for all of us to express our own vulnerabilities as well. So I'm very grateful to you too.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you so much for your time with us today.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who has been listening. And so let's move together. Let's co-create this new culture. It's a good send-off.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
and actually, I'd love to end with this. There's something, Deepak, you always say. Joy is the ultimate measure of success. Maybe I'm not quoting you correctly, but I feel very joyful after sharing with you today.
Joy is our fundamental state. It's not happiness. Happiness is always for a reason. So the very word, the pursuit of happiness, assumes you're unhappy. And that's not a good place to start. Start with joy and then move from there, and everything else follows.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gabriela.